Hello, dear friends. This is Ruslan Belov speaking. So, my friends, good news keeps coming from the front. Especially pleasing are the updates from the area of responsibility of the Vostok East Group in the Dnipropetrovsk region. In fact, I was planning to start today's report with that, but what's happening in Pokrovsk right now, the hysteria we're seeing from the Ukrainian side, how fast everything is collapsing there, forces us to begin with Pokrovsk. And only after that, we'll move to the successes of the Vostok Group. So let's start with Pokrovsk. Here, the armed forces of Ukraine are suffering total collapse. Russian troops are already operating in the city as masters. The reason is simple. Even the fragile logistics that still existed for the Ukrainian army have now been cut. As you can see, they used to have a route from Hryshyn, along this road, where they somehow managed to build a supply line, under constant shelling and airstrikes, but still functioning. Now, Russian fighters have cut it completely. At this moment, every road leading to Pokrovsk and out of Pokrovsk has been physically cut off. Let me emphasize this once more. It's not just drone control, it's full physical control over every route. Because of this, panic and chaos have erupted among the Ukrainian forces. Yesterday alone, 7 groups, about 50 soldiers in total, tried to escape in the direction of Hryshyn, but their fate was grim. The so-called bottleneck of their escape route is extremely narrow. Let's even measure it to see clearly, less than 4.5 kilometers wide, meaning only about 2 kilometers of space on each side. Out of roughly 50 Ukrainian soldiers who tried to break through that bottleneck yesterday, fewer than 10 reached their target. Meanwhile, Russian troops are methodically clearing the city. As I said, they now feel completely confident in Pokrovsk, like masters of the city. Yesterday, footage appeared online from Zheleznodorozhnaya Street, where a Russian soldier calmly approached and point-blank shot a Ukrainian soldier who was hiding in an ambush, waiting for Russian troops. Ukrainian sources also reported yesterday that Russian fighters were already spotted on the outskirts of the town of Hryshyn. During the past 24 hours, Russian troops advanced 400 meters along Schmitter Street, expanded the zone of control in the northern part of Pokrovsk, near the railway and warehouse area, moved along Zheleznodorozhnaya Street and the railway tracks by 770 meters, reaching the eastern edge of the city near Shosseinaya Street. They also advanced 500 meters along Tolstogo Street and 270 meters along Shkalova Street. In the city center, they significantly expanded control, moving more than 1 kilometer, from Zashchitnikov Ukraini Street to Marshal Moskalenko Street, reaching the Hornike residential district. In addition, the Yuzhny southern district was taken completely under control. Russian troops cleared and secured 18 multi-story buildings and a school building there. Looking at the map and the scale of advancement, it's clear that we're no longer talking about weeks. It's a matter of days before the city falls completely under Russian control. Perhaps days sounds too optimistic. But really, how long can they hold out? The bottleneck is only about 4 kilometers wide and keeps narrowing, 2 kilometers on each side. It's only a matter of a short time before Russian units meet each other and complete a full physical encirclement. After that, any breakout attempt will be impossible, and the Ukrainian troops inside will inevitably collapse. That's why I say it again, the countdown is measured in days, not weeks. And as Pokrovsk falls, Ukrainian forces are also weakening in the nearby city of Maharrad, which is logical. You have to understand that Pokrovsk and Maharrad are directly linked. The loss of Pokrovsk will inevitably lead to the loss of Maharrad, because this 4-kilometer wide corridor is the exit route not only from Pokrovsk, but also from Maharrad. And indeed, Ukrainian troops are now suffering setbacks in Maharrad as well. Over the past 24 hours, Russian fighters have pushed into the private housing area of the city, advancing more than 1 kilometer, precisely 1 kilometer and 200 meters, and taking control of Pervomaiskaya Street, along with several adjacent streets and dozens of residential properties. Fighting continues there. If the Ukrainian command had any sense, they would have already ordered a retreat from both Pokrovsk and Maharrad to save a significant portion of their garrison and at least attempt to organize a new defensive line around Dobropilia. But of course, they have to prove their strength to Trump. So they kept showing off, until the corridor shrank even further, and soon the encirclement will be complete. Once again, 2 kilometers on each side. It's only a matter of days before a full physical encirclement is achieved. Now let's move on. The Ukrainian army is also facing growing problems in another city. For now, it's on the outskirts, but not for long. I'm talking about Severk. In the past 24 hours, Russian troops broke into the village of Zvanivka, the last settlement on the southern approaches to Seversk. And not just a small incursion, they made a solid breakthrough of 1 kilometer and 400 meters through the residential area, reaching the village center. If the Russian army finishes taking Zvanivka, it will not only open the southern approach to Seversk, but also effectively secure control over one of its main supply routes. From the current positions, the road through Pokrovsk is now less than 2.5 kilometers away, which means it can hardly be used for supply anymore. And once Zvanivka is captured, the distance to that supply road will shrink to less than 1.5 kilometers. In addition, to the north of Vyemka, Russian troops advanced 500 meters along the railway. Step by step, the Russian army is closing in on Seversk. From their current positions, the distance to the first houses on the southern edge of the city is only about 2 kilometers. For now, the Ukrainian forces still have a chance to withdraw from Seversk, but once the Russian army captures Zvanivka and Pokrovsk in the south and Platonivka in the north, there will be no way out. Another cauldron will form. If you look at the map, you can already see the half-encirclement. It's obvious from the front's configuration. Everything now depends on just 3 villages, or really 2.5. Platonivka in the north and Zvanivka with Pokrovsk in the south. If they fall, that's it. There will be no road left, no exit at all. The roads will be physically cut, and only open fields will remain. But I'm sure there will be no retreat order from the Ukrainian command. So another cauldron is inevitable. That's their problem, as they say. Now, let's turn to the successes of the Vostok East Group in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Here, Russian troops have advanced along a front more than 6 kilometers wide. 2 settlements, Vishnev and Kirpichne, have come under control. And just think, in less than a week, Vostok Group troops in their operational zone covering parts of the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions have captured 6 settlements. No one has shown such progress since April 2022. The Vostok Group is clearly on the offensive, and the Ukrainian army cannot stop them. Now, to the details. The capture of Vishnev is a major event, since the village is not small, larger than Yegorivka, Verbov, or Alexeyevka. Before the war, about 1,000 people lived there. Russian fighters reached the village only a few days ago, and now it's completely under their control. Footage from the village shows that it's almost untouched. No ruins, no burnt-out houses, not even damaged roofs. Move in and live, as they say. What does that tell us? It means the Ukrainian troops couldn't withstand the assault and simply fled from Vishnev. That's why the battle ended in just a couple of days, despite the settlement's size. Along the way, Russian troops also took Kirpichne, technically more of a hamlet, with only 2 small streets. In addition, they captured Krasnogorsk, the last settlement on the eastern bank of the Yancha River. The total area that came under Russian control in the Dnipropetrovsk region amounts to 12 square kilometers. In total, 23 settlements in the region are now under Russian control, and several more are next in line. One of them is Novoalexandrivka. Russian forces have already begun advancing toward it from Vishnev, and at this point, their positions are only about 2.5 kilometers from the village. Another target is Danilivka, which is being bombed daily by Russian aviation using glide bombs to wipe out Ukrainian strongpoints. Here, the real value lies not in the village itself, but in the Pokrovsk-Huliaipol highway. Given the capture of Vishnev and its large size, it will undoubtedly serve as a staging base. From there, Russian troops will soon move toward the highway and cut it completely. After that, they will advance toward the town of Pokrovsk, with a population of around 10,000, and simultaneously push toward Huliaipol, which will be severely weakened once its main supply artery is severed. So it's not only in Pokrovsk that the Ukrainian forces are facing serious trouble. Things are heating up here too. And yet, Zelensky still tries to convince Trump that the Ukrainian army is winning. Well, you can see the results for yourself. Now we move north, to the Kupansk direction, where fierce battles also continue. From this sector, we receive very few objective control videos. However, today, footage appeared showing Ukrainian drones striking Russian positions. From these clips, it's already clear that Russian troops are completing the clearance of the western part of Kupansk and are preparing to advance south toward two Ukrainian supply routes that feed the entire eastern part of the urban agglomeration. It looks like the battle for Kupiansk is also nearing its logical conclusion. The Ukrainian armed forces have lost all their strongest defensive positions in the city, and now all they can do is fight their last battles and retreat to backup lines. Now let's take a look at what's happening on the political front. Only a few days remain before the budgetary apocalypse in the United States. Starting on the 1st of November, a huge number of social programs, such as food stamp assistance for 42 million Americans, will lose their funding, reports Dudakov. Civil servants, air traffic controllers, and military personnel will not receive their salaries. The situation in American air travel is becoming increasingly critical. Air traffic controllers are being forced to take second jobs, like courier delivery, just to pay their bills. Some can't even afford fuel to drive to their main workplace. The United States is already facing a severe shortage of air traffic controllers. There are about 10,000 of them, while the minimum required number is 15,000. Because of this, the number of emergency incidents at airports is rapidly increasing. Flight disruptions are also becoming more frequent. There have been as many as 8,000 cases of flight cancellations or delays. Members of Congress are now desperately urging Trump to intervene and at least approve some version of the federal budget. But he seems more interested in traveling the world than in dealing with domestic crises that remain unresolved anyway. In Japan, Trump urged the military to buy Toyota vehicles in exchange for a promise to build new factories in the United States. If only they had the money for that. Toyota has already lost $10 billion because of Trump's tariffs, and its promises to invest another $10 billion in the American market don't look serious so far. The rest of the deals signed across Asia also contain very few concrete details. Meanwhile, the economic consequences of the trade wars, and now the looming government shutdown, will continue to accumulate. Only when the economy begins to crumble will Congress be forced to drop political games and urgently find a budget compromise. Meanwhile, Belgium's defense minister stated that Russia produces 4 times more artillery shells than all NATO countries combined. Moscow can also purchase far more for the same amount of money as the West, noted Theo Franken. Those who say we shouldn't fear the Russians are gravely mistaken, he said. This is a geopolitical superpower with a strong army and enormous fighting spirit. They won in Chechnya. They dominated the war in Syria for 10 years. And they are active across many fronts in Africa. Europe doesn't even have a central command structure, except for a few Eurocorps units in Strasbourg. We have nothing that could be immediately deployed into battle, he emphasized. Earlier, Moscow repeatedly stressed that it has no intention of waging war against NATO countries. There are no reasons for that, neither economic, nor political, nor any other. The Hungarian Prime Minister shared his thoughts on Europe's role in the negotiation process between Ukraine and Russia, and on the Union's future actions regarding Ukraine's destiny. First, there must be an agreement, said Viktor Orbán. We Hungarians want Europe to take part in this agreement. That's why we've always insisted that Europe must want to negotiate with the Russians. Talks between Russia and Ukraine alone will not bring peace. If that were possible, peace would already have come. True peace can only be achieved with the involvement of external powers, such as the United States and Europe. Europe refuses to speak with Russia, and that's a catastrophic mistake. The Americans will talk, they will sign agreements, and they will decide Ukraine's future, its economic resources, and Europe's security within the deal they conclude with the Russians. We Europeans will pretend to like it and applaud afterward. But in reality, we won't be able to influence our own future. That's why we want European leaders to enter direct, open contact with the Russians, start negotiations, and sign a Russian-European agreement, concluded Viktor Orbán. My friends, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Support the channel with a like and a subscription. It really helps us grow and bring you more honest and in-depth reports. Take care of yourselves, think critically, and never lose faith in common sense. This is Ruslan Belov. See you in the next episode.